Yeah, good evening, everyone. I think we are live now. And
Okay,
yeah, Parul, we should start now.
with camera on or sort of?
Yeah, with camera on. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, professionals. Welcome to all my professional friends. Welcome to all my professional friends, CAs, CS, and advocates who present here today to listen our eminent speakers. And I would like to thank every one of you who blocked their time for this virtual get together and to enhance our knowledge about the topic of CSR, corporate social responsibility, and business sustainability. So, kindly have a round of applause for every one of us who present here today. Kindly have a round of applause for every one of us. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Parul Agarwal, advocate and fellow member of ICSI. So, as a panelist, we have a great speakers with us today. We have Santosh Ramanuja sir with us. We have Pradeep Devnath sir with us. We have Vineet Chaudhary sir with us. And also we have Sumit Garg sir. We have. So thank you. Kindly again have a round of applause for all our eminent speakers who block their time for spread the knowledge for all of us. Kindly again have a round of applause for our eminent speakers. So without wasting much time for all of us, I would like to invite CS Santosh Ramanuja sir for inaugural sessions, for inaugural speech. Kindly welcome Santosh Ramanuja sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Parul ji. It's my honor. We have a great panelist here. And CA Sumit Garg sir, a famous, renowned speaker. प्रदीप देवनाथ भैया जो कि काफी टाइम से जुड़े हैं सिंस द बिगनिंग फ्रॉम द कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल जब से स्टार्ट हुआ 2019 से हमारे साथ आज गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर है विनीत चौधरी सर बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद फॉर गिविंग टाइम टू कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म I'll take a little time to introduce about the connecting professional. कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल सर इससे ट्रस्ट एक ट्रस्ट है जो कि सारे प्रोफेशनल को साथ में लेके चलता है अभी तक क्या है कि वी हैविंग सम सीए फैकल्टी सीएस फैकल्टी कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट फैकल्टी टैक्स फैकल्टी के अलग अलग ग्रुप्स बने हुए हैं या फिर उनके सीपीस स्टडी सर्कल्स के बने हुए हैं या छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स हैं जो अपनी फैकल्टी की बातें करते हैं वी आर हेयर टू टॉक अबाउट एवरीवंस अबाउट कंपनी सेक्रेटरी अबाउट चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट अबाउट कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट इवन सीपीए सीएफए सब लोगों को साथ में लेके चलते हैं तो ये जर्नी हम लोगों ने स्टार्ट किया था जुलाई 19 से 2019 से ये 7 मेंबर्स थे जिसमें प्रदीप भैया स्टार्टिंग से रहे अरुण काफी वाइटल रोल प्ले किया है उन्होंने स्टैब्लिश करने में कनेक्टिंग को 6-7 मेंबर्स है वी आर नाउ मोर देन 700 मेंबर्स फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर इंडिया सो वी आर दिस फाउंडेशन इज वर्किंग एज अ हेल्पिंग एंड प्लेटफॉर्म एक प्लेटफॉर्म है जिसके थ्रू हेल्प होता है इसका टैगलाइन है हेल्पिंग एंड प्लेटफॉर्म और जो बेसिकली कनेक्शन पे हम लोग काम करते हैं नेटवर्किंग पे काम करते हैं कि आपकी एक्सपर्टीज को प्रमोट करते हैं जिनकी हर एक की एक एक्सपर्टीज है सुमित गर्ग सर एक्सपर्टीज हैं सीएसआर पे टॉपिक्स पे जैसे प्रदीप सर का अलग है ऋषभ शाह जी का एक अलग एक्सपर्टीज है हर एक मेंबर्स की एक्सपर्टीज को हम लोग प्रमोट करते हैं और उस एक्सपर्टीज और लोकेशन के बेस पे वी यूज टू शेयर द असाइनमेंट्स पिछले 2.5 साल में हम लोगों ने 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा का असाइनमेंट आपस में शेयर किया जिनकी जो एक्सपर्टीज है वी हैविंग मेनी इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल या मेनी फॉरेंसिक ऑडिटर रजिस्टर वैल्यूअर इसमें आपके बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो सेबी पे काम करने वाले हैं जो आपके लिस्टिंग कंपनी पे जो लिस्टिंग अनलिस्टिंग के जो कंप्लायंसेस है मर्जर एक्विजिशन का काम है जो एनसीएलटी की हेयरिंग्स है वी हैविंग अ वेरी डाइवर्सिटी काइंड ऑफ प्रोफेशनल्स हियर जो कि एक कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल में एक साथ मिलके हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं और कोशिश करते हैं कि जो भी जिस तरीके से जिस एक्सपर्टीज का भी असाइनमेंट्स आए वो आपस में किसी मेंबर्स को हम लोग कर सके और उनके थ्रू वो असाइनमेंट किया जाए और बहुत अच्छा अभी तक का दौर रहा है अभी तक का जर्नी बहुत सफलफुल रहा है बहुत सक्सेसफुल रहा है और विल कंटिन्यू हम लोग इसको साथ में कंटिन्यू करेंगे। तो अभी तक वी हैविंग मोर देन 50 कन्वीनर्स फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर इंडिया। वी हैविंग कंसेप्ट टू अपॉइंट वन कन्वीनर फ्रॉम ईच सिटी। हर एक सिटी से एक कन्वीनर्स होते हैं जो वहाँ के लोकल प्रोफेशनल्स को कनेक्ट करते हैं, जो भी चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हैं या कंपनी सेक्रेटरी हैं। साथ में उनके साथ सेमिनार कराना, वेबिनार कराना, इवन हम लोग एक गेट टुगेदर कराते हैं, कोशिश करते हैं क्वार्टर में एक गेट टुगेदर हो क्वार्टरली, जिसमें कि जो प्रोफेशनल फ्रेंड्स हैं उनकी फैमिली है उनके साथ गेट टुगेदर हो, जिससे कि जो हम लोग प्रोफेशनल का स्ट्रेस है, स्ट्रेस मैनेजमेंट हो सके। स्ट्रेस काफी चल रहा है, काफी कंप्लायंसेस का आपका ड्यू डेट्स को मैनेज करने के लिए या फिर स्ट्रेस मैनेज करने के लिए वी यूज टू ऑर्गेनाइज सम म्यूजिकल इवेंट, सम गेट टुगेदर, लाइक नेटवर्किंग एक हो रहा है जो प्रोफेशनल्स के साथ भी है और उनके फैमिली के साथ भी हो रहा है, जो कि हम लोग कमिंग अप्रैल मंथ्स में भी कर रहे हैं। होली के बाद भी रहेगा इस साल का पहला गेट टुगेदर। तो ये एक कोशिश है लोगों को साथ में लेकर आने का। और अभी तक हम लोग जो प्रोफेशनल्स इंडस्ट्री में है उनसे 600 से ज्यादा, वी हैव हेल्प मोर देन 600 प्रोफेशनल्स टू गेट जॉब। जो इंडस्ट्री में जो लोग हैं उनके लिए हम लोगों ने काफी मदद की है। और इसके साथ साथ कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल यहीं पे नहीं रुका, मतलब प्रोफेशनली हेल्प के साथ साथ इवन कोविड में भी हमारी टीम ने काफी काम किया। वी हैव हेल्प मोर देन 170 पीपल टू गेट प्लाज्मा, टू गेट ऑक्सीजन, टू गेट बेड्स। हर तरीके से हम लोग एक दूसरे को तैयार रहते हैं एक दूसरे की हेल्प करने के लिए। इवन जो नए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हैं या नए कंपनी सेक्रेटरी हैं या स्टूडेंट्स, इवन स्टूडेंट्स को भी हम लोग गाइडेंस के रूप में कुछ कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल के लोग, दे आर वर्किंग लाइक ए मेंटर, कि आपने जॉब करना है, आपने प्रैक्टिस करना है, या पे स्टूडेंट्स में क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रही है या किस तरीके से आपने क्वालिफाई करना है। जहाँ पे भी प्रॉब्लम होता है तो वी यूज टू स्पेयर सम टाइम टू हेल्प देम। और कनेक्टिंग का यही पर्पस है कि हम लोग एक दूसरे की हेल्प करते चले, तो इस तरीके से कोई भी प्रॉब्लम है जो उसको सॉर्ट आउट बड़े आराम से किया जा सकता है। तो मैं आप सबसे यही उम्मीद करूंगा कि इस कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल को और स्प्रेड आउट करें और ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को जोड़े, ज्यादा से ज्यादा मेंबर्स को कनेक्ट करें, हर एक सिटी पे स्प्रेड आउट करें, इवन ओवरसीज में भी लेके जाएं। जैसे कि अभी हम लोग वी हैविंग मेंबर्स इन नीदरलैंड, सिंगापुर, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, कुछ कुछ मेंबर्स हैं बाहर से। तो आप सबका सहयोग चाहिए ताकि ज्यादा से ज्यादा मेंबर्स को कनेक्ट करें, ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को हेल्प करें। उनकी अगर कोई एक्सपर्टीज है, उनके एक्सपर्टीज के साथ नेटवर्किंग करके उनको उनके उनके काम को बढ़ाया जाए, उनकी भी हेल्प करी जाए। जो नए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हैं, नए कंपनी सेक्रेटरी हैं या नए कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट हैं, उनको भी हर तरीके से हेल्प किया जाए। ये पर्पस है इस कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल का। So it's all about the connecting professional, and today we are here for the very wonderful topic। बहुत अच्छा, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक है। काफी CSR पे जो काफी चेंजेस भी आए इसमें। तो आई वुड लाइक टू हियर फ्रॉम द सुमित सर एंड विनीत चौधरी सर जो इसके बारे में बताएंगे। सो प्लीज मूव अहेड, कैरी ऑन द सेशन पारुल जी, है ना।
Thank you so much, Santosh sir, for enlightening us, for telling us, for describing us about the Connecting Professional program. Certainly, this is very nice initiative that you took to connect all the professional from all the stream, not only about the CS, not only about the CAs and the lawyers. So we connected together. So it's so nice, so sir, listening to you about the Connecting Professional programs. Kindly have a round of applause for Santosh Ramanuja sir. So now I would like to invite CS Pradeep Devnath sir, who is having more than 15 years of professional experience in corporate law matters. He is regularly appearing for SET, RBI tribunals, NCLT, and various other authorities. He is specialized in FEMA and SEBI matters. Pradeep Devnath sir is currently having the proprietor of Pradeep Devnath and Company Secretaries Group, partner in the CLB Associates. He is also the member of the various committees of the ICSI. He is a vice president of the Loin Clubs of Delhi Professionals, and he is a secretary in the IT cell of IHRO. And also, not only this, his experience is that he is ex-chairman of Northern Region Councils of India, ICSI. So I would like to invite Pradeep Devnath sir to enlighten us about this. Welcome, Pradeep Devnath sir.
So, thank you, Parul, for wonderful introduction. One introduction she left that I can proudly say that I'm also a member of Connecting Professional, as Santosh Ramanuj told.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir. My
Since
apologies.
beginning, I am associated with this group, and I must compliment Santosh, Rushabh, Arun, and entire his team who led this foundation wonderfully. they they invited me number of times in various physical, offline, or online webinars and seminars, and I must say uh, we all enjoyed always the program or session conducted by Connecting Professional. My best wishes to entire team of Connecting Professional for carrying this objective of Connecting Professional into next height. As a member of this group, I will certainly do my best to achieve your goal, Santosh. संतोष के लिए मैं क्या बोलूं, ही इज लाइक माय यंगर ब्रदर. He always ready to work for the society. I know during the pandemic time how Connecting Professional led by Santosh helped society and people at the time of need. Many of us donate blood, contributed foods, distributed foods, and do all contribution in all aspect. So Santosh, I must proudly say that I am also member of this Connecting Professional, and it's my honor to share dais with my fellow member and my best friend Sumit Garg. When we took a decision to hold this webinar, and Santosh and his team approached me, Arun especially, so I immediately connect Sumit, and during my NIRC or every time, Sumit is a person who always, despite of his busy schedule, he always agreed my request, and mm, uh, I mean, always ready to share his vast experience. He has vast experience in corporate law matter. He is regularly appearing in NCLT. He worked with big law firms. Now he is also associate with some law firm owned by him only. So, Shumit, heartful thank for exceeding my request to take the session on very apt topic, and most importantly, my heartful thank to Vineet Bhai. I think Vineet Bhai is traveling. He's coming from Agra. He was there to take session on few topic at Agra chapter. So when I approached Vineet Bhai, he immediately agreed. Pradeep, यार मैंने विनीत भाई के लिए मैं क्या बोलूं, मैं I have no word to say thanks to Vineet Bhai. He always supported me. He always stand by me for any purpose. And today also, despite of his busy schedule and he is traveling, he said, Pradeep, I'll try to my level best to attend the session. No matter, I will. I may travel, but I will join you certainly. So he's traveling. Probably he joined actually, but now I think he's not. No, he is in line. So Vineet Bhai may listen me my words. Vineet Bhai, Vineet Bhai, my heartful thank. Uh, Always विनीत भाई को तो मैं सैल्यूट करूंगा. The way he served to the profession, the way he served to the society, and especially he is like my elder brother, always stand by me. uh, he is a vast experience in various corporate law matter, especially in IBC. So जब मैंने अप्रोच किया, विनीत भाई वी आर होल्डिंग सेशन ऑन CSR, नो मैटर यार, कर ले any matter, just to intimate me subject, I will share few words. So Vineet bhai is such kind of expert, always always, I mean, available for the profession, available for us. So thank you, Vineet bhai. I can see you. You are traveling, coming in Delhi. Now, Arun. Arun is also like my younger brother, and he is also uh, taking it forward to next level, trying his best to take the connecting professional into the newer height. And he always seek my guidance, my support, and I mean, proudly I can say that Arun is working hard. Arun, I must say thanks to you also to give us the opportunity to share DAS with such eminent personalities, Sumit, Ramanuj, uh, Santosh Ramanuj, and Vineet Bhai, and Rushabh, and entire team of, and Parol especially. Parol के लिए मैं क्या बोलूं? Parol is like my younger sister. Uh, she also, despite of her busy schedule, she is actively associated with various social platform, and she always keen to work together with such connecting professional and other association. So I must say thanks, Parol, also for kindly agreeing to moderate the session. So I hope we all enjoy today's session without taking much time. I, though I am not, I mean, a speaker, but I want to listen Shumit and Vineet bhai. Few things which I want to know regarding the CSR. You know, CSR is when it was enacted in 2014. This is a single law, I must say, entire world, which mandate the CSR in India. So, and nowadays CSR become a very important aspects for sustainable growth and development of the society. So being a corporate and being a professional, we have certain obligation, I would say PSR, personal social responsibility also. For this, being a professional, being a company secretary, chartered accountant, or advocate, we must have certain obligations, certain duties towards the society, uh, in accordance with the duty which play by the corporates through the CSR. Few things which I want to know, and I am surprised. I when I visited, there is some website governed by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, CSR portal. So when I see CSR contribution made by the corporate in last 3 years, in 2018, 19, it was around it was around 25,000 companies and 20,000 crore CSR contribution. Then 19, 20, 22,000 company and 24,000 crore is CSR contribution made by the company in India. In 2020-21, especially, I have certain apprehension which I want to know the exact reason why it is, by my friend Sumit and Vineet bhai also. There was only 8,633 companies, and total CSR contribution made by these companies 20,360 crore. So if we will compare the contribution and number of companies from 2018 to 2020, number of companies goes down drastically, three times, whereas the contribution is remaining the same. So why it is? That means there was uh, certain non-compliances or something wrong being made by the corporates in adherence of the CSR. So this is few things. I mean, rest what tax implication would be there, and what the recent amendment uh, in the CSR, that all will cover by Sumit. So without wasting my much time, I again thanks to entire team of connecting professional for giving me this opportunity to share dias. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Pradeep sir, for enlightening us or for telling about the CSR and raising the right questions about the CSR. Thank you, Pradeep sir. Kindly have a round of applause for Pradeep. So now I would like to invite a man of substance and hard work, believe in a thing and hears the passion and compassion with no compromise. None other than C.S. Vinit Chaudhary, who is a practicing company secretary and founder of BKS Associates and has an integrated and well-knit setup of a practicing firm of a company secretary. He has a wide network of the professionals in the country and his presence is such a pan-India. He is a popular known as BKC in the corporate world and the professional fraternity. He has been re-elected as a member of the Central Council of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India for the term 2019 to 2021. And during his term, he is presently the chairman of the Auditing Standard Board constituted by the ICSI and vice chairman of the peer review board of the ICSI. He is also a key member of the other functional committees of ICSI and ICOAI and the industry chambers and the quality review of the board of ICSI. He is frequently as the president of the company at IBC at national conference and the seminar organized by the various professional institutes and bodies. Not only this, Vinit Chaudhary is also a registered insolvency professional under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code and is also a founder of the director. I apologize. Not only this, Mr. Vinit Chaudhary sir is also a registered insolvency professional under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code and is also a founder of the director of the ICSI Institute of Insolvency Professionals at ICSI IIP. Mr. Chaudhary has acted as an IRP, RP, and the professional advisory in many corporate insolvency resolution process and liquidation process under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, and also resolved under the code at the early stage of its implementation. So, with this rich experience, I would like to invite Mr. Vinit Chaudhary sir to say or to enlighten us about the topic. Kindly welcome Mr. Vinit Chaudhary sir.
Thank you, Parul, and thank you very much. Thank you, Sumitji, for joining me because you have to take the important part of this program today. But to start, my sincere thanks and gratitude to Santosh Ramanuji. I have heard a lot about this. Connecting professionals from many of my fraternity friends. I have been personally to the many groups and noticing the activities of this group, but today it was indeed great to know the larger objective and purpose of this group, not only to connect the professionals to improve their knowledge, but to also enhance their social outfits, to help them in the time of need, and which you have been doing. My sincere compliment to the help you extended during the COVID time to all the members. In addition to the professional knowledge sharing platform which you have provided using the sophisticated tools, it is indeed a great initiative. I am here today, Pradeep is my brother and he has left no option to me. Pradeep said, this is a program today we are holding and you have to come. I said I would be happy to come because I know the professionals are connected with this group and to be with professionals is always a pleasure. However, I am traveling to Agra today, so maybe it is difficult. But even if I tried my best that I can reach back to my home by, 4 p.m. Unfortunately, the program got delayed here and I am on the highway now. So I'm just borrowed the network. I'm trying my hard that I can be connected with you to the extent possible. So without taking much time, my sincere thanks once again to the organizers for putting such a beautiful platform of knowledge sharing. having this kind of the deliberations involving everyone, not only fraternity, company secretary, chartered accountants and all, right? Thank you, Parul. You are, really doing a great coordinations and, in a very professional manner. Keep it up. Pradeep bhai, thank you very
Thank you.
much. You have spoken a lot about me. We are just brothers. And because I know you have also traveled far from in your life, coming from a very basic background like me, and traveling to here, it is not an easy task. And I have seen your journey from the date of your training to reaching to the regionals, and then, you know, doing professional work, taking pressures of the hundred companies in corporation and the management. And you had that capacity. So I always admire you, your hard work, sincerity, and dedication to the profession and to the work, and which is more important for a professional. With these words, uh, I would straightly like to come to the topic. The topic is again a fantastic topic which has been put on the table today by the connecting professionals. The topic is CSR and sustainability, which you say business sustainability is definitely a word which goes hand by hand. I will not dwell upon into the technical side of Section 135 and the rules made thereunder, but I would like to just take you through that what is the CSR and what is the objectivity, because what is the philosophy behind it. The important before any legislations is the philosophy, the understanding why we have CSR kind of the concept, while we all are bound by law of equity also to do some sort of charity. So whether CSR is a charity, and if it is a charity, then when we are talking about the comparison with the sustainability has a different meaning and connotation. But in the today's context, with the latest amendment and the figures and the facts the Pradeep has placed on the table, it has become imperative on the part of the professionals to discuss that what is the correlation between the CSR and the business sustainability. It has, to my understanding, it has a great correlation. If you look at the historical background of the CSR concept, it came back in the Act of 2013 the first time, which we have been debated for long. It was a great source of inspiration for all those parliamentarians also who came forward and said, okay, I to this law and it to be made effective. Even if this law had a myth like another myth which was broken by Yogi ji yesterday, that somebody chief minister visiting to the Noida will lose. And probably we had this kind of the myth with the Companies Act. And we have seen for 15 years during our studentship and the initial days as a professional that somebody putting hand to the Companies Act would go. This happened actually, but it came with a fantastic concept of the CSR along with the many other changes which brought by the government. And I'm sure in time to come, I'm just putting my words with a fuller scope that we will see the another law. This law again is going through a lot of challenges within a period of 5 to 7 years. Despite the fact that the government has tried its level best to make so many changes, but still there are the gray areas. There are the implementation issues which are going on. Coming back to CSR historically, as I told you, was a great source of inspiration to get this law into the force. And that was the first rule I remember in 2013, which was put on the table after the law was amended, was put on the to the implementation CSR rules under Section 135, effective from the 1st April 2014 itself, from the day one. And there has been confusion what will be the applicability, whether the private limited companies even not need to have independent director, has to have an independent director on the board of it. Then the clarifications came and the things started moving. And the law started in a fashion that the CSR is something which you have to comply with or you have to explain. I think the Sumit will take you through that technical side of the subject. That when we talk about CSR, what is CSR to the corporates is initially either you comply with or you have to explain with that. But we have seen, I have been the part of the committee constituted by the Ministry on the CSR and propagated so many things also happened that CSR probably people could not, take it into the direction which the spirit was there. So because the spirit was missing, the people have been complaining that we are not having the sufficient project to make the expenditure even if we have made the provision for it. So without going into the technical side, that what is the provision, how it is the calculation also has been a matter of debate and discussion, but finally steadily it has been settled down. What happened that this concept of the comply or explain no has come to a different connotation, to a different level with the recent amendments and the thought process. That were no other way, if you are not finding any project which is appropriate where the CSR expenditures can be made, we have a lot of funds given by the government. Prime Minister Relief Fund is one of them. Then they said there is a deadline. You have to make the expenditure within that financial year, because the issue relating to the carry forward of the CSR to the next year, whether it's an obligation or other as an excess amount thereof, was again a lot of interpretation issues were there. They said nothing going. Either you make the expenditures or you transfer it to a particular fund. Yes, for the capital expenditure, for the capital project, there is a different set of the rules has been framed. But if I come to the sustainability, I firmly believe that any organization cannot live in isolation. Every company, every business is using the resources of the country, resourcing, and when I talk about resources, human resources, natural resources, and also polluting the environment. So they have the very duty towards the society at large also, and that is why the CSR is not a charity in my view. I understand it is a responsibility. The responsibility, because you are drawing the resources, you have to give it back to the society, and you have to join the hand with the government, who is under the obligation in terms of the constitutional mandate to look into the welfare of the society at large. Equally, you have to join the hand with the government to do the social obligations, because you are utilizing the resources. There is no charity itself. And that's why we have that what kind of the percentile at least has to be put aside for the purpose of the CSR, 2% of the net profit. So with this sustainability, which the worldwide we have been talking about, that to sustain the business, it is not only the profitability. Sometime and equally important is the compliances to the social and economic norms. The social and economic balancing can only be done if you are equally concerned and responsible to the society. A business which is doing great but is hampering the society, polluting the environment, and is not carrying it, not responsible for it, or not putting its effort towards its obligations, probably has to shut down, and that's the biggest threat. That's what we have seen in the Delhi NCR. It has become difficult even to get a license for so many kind of industries. It is only the green units which are coming. This is a challenge also for the business organizations. But just to take it that CSR is something people feel it. Why it is just like a SAS? There is a criticism. Why the government is just putting it hard on our, balance sheet when they are charging so many kind of the taxes? As I told you, this is an additional responsibility to the society. And when the government needs the helping hands, you have to do it. There is no other choice, whatever may be your thought process. And no, it has been completely stood by all of us. The only thing is that the spirit is missing. We have to see that the CSR is being done in the spirit of it. It is not just the paper entry has been made, because time is not far away when the audits will start. And those audits will take, the companies to a different direction. If it is found that the CSR obligations has been diverted, utilized or misutilized, I am scared to say that the very serious consequences will follow. And why we should do it? When we are getting an opportunity to do something good for our society, from where we are earning the profit, because if there is no profit, there is no CSR, which is a compulsory thing. So at least we should be morally bound and ethically bound to do the duty and task. There can be interpretational issues when we discuss about as a professionals. I'm sure Sumit will take that forward. But to me, I will not take much time, because other professionals must be waiting for a PPT presentation. As a guest of honor, I must compliment once again to the organizers for such a wonderful show and their continuous efforts towards the welfare of the professionals and community at large. Not only to educate them, but also to provide them a platform where they can interact with each other and help each other. Helping hands This is the greatest thing which I noticed from the, the Santosh ji opening remarks, and that was indeed great to hear. And that should be the spirit, because we professionals first are professionals. We meant for a purpose. We are just hardly 1 to 5% in the country. We are skilled one. We are needed by the society. We are needed by the country, because if country economic environment ecosystem is getting strong, we are able to add some value. Probably we will also be having a healthy and good life, a respected life. And we have the primary duty as a CSR. Like we are not having the fund to make the investment, but as a professional, as literate professionals, we are equally responsible and expected to give our services and advice, by which the real meaning of the CSR can be understood and can be implemented. That would be a CSR from our side. That what we can do as a professional. We don't have a fund, right, to make the expenditure. That's only the advice what we give. So we can be honest to that extent within the professional challenges. Yes. Thank you very much once again. And Pradeep, you said that because the data is reflecting. Yes, I remember I appeared before the Standing Committee of Parliament in 2016, and 26 MPs in open house asked me this question. They discussed about CSR for half an hour. They were also having, you know, data in their mind, because the CSR figure was not out at that point of time. It was not compulsory. It was just comply or explain. So they were also expecting, we said 25,000, 30,000, some would come to the, additional corpus of the government, which will create the infrastructure and need of the society. I said, where is the data? That was very difficult, because that was just a newspaper readings and analyst views. But that happens, like F&O happened, that the cash market gone and F&O happened. So there has been economic growth also, but with this pandemic, the profitability has gone down. What I understand primarily, and we have to wait for the 31st March 2022 also. I'm expecting that some good amount of the CSR would come to the domain, maybe in the Prime Minister Relief Fund or in the capital. You will find it. But I think because of pandemic and profitability has been hit for so many sectors, so many organizations, except few sectors, all sectors has been under a lot of pressures. They have not been able to decide that what would be their future, whether they are going for the expense and they would have profitability. Forget the profitability, the sustainability has become a question for so many business segments. Even today they are going through that challenges. If you talk about travel, hospitality kind of the segment, they are actually going through a very, very tough phase. And they are looking at how to do the sustainability. CSR will definitely come. But first is the sustainability. They will sustain, they are become responsible and they will do it. So to my understanding, let us wait for some more time. Thank you. And Arun, thank you very much. You are not only co-founder, you are a great leader, always very active, keep everyone on toes, right? You have been doing great, very, very actively you have been participating. I have seen at various platforms. My best wishes to you also. And my uh, once again gratitude and wishes to the team connecting professionals. And thank you, Pradeep bhai, uh, for your such gracious introductions, and well as opportunity to interact with my fellow colleagues, my professionals, my thank you very much. And carry on, Sumit bhai, because I'm in traveling. It may be difficult that I can continue for a longer time, but I'm sure you continue. You are there. You are a competent and thorough professional, and you will take the members through the different queries. Thank you very much. I seek your leave with this. Thank you, Pradeep.
Thank you, Vineet bhai.
Thank you so much, Vinit sir, for expressing and telling us the detail about the CSR and just keeping a image before every one of us that what is the real aspect of the CSR and what are real being into the corporate, what are real responsibility as towards the CSR. So thank you so much, sir, for expressing your views, keeping your views and enlightened us. Okay, kindly have a round of applause for Vinit sir. Thank you so much, sir. So now I know every one of us waiting for the our main and eminent speakers, which is going to tell about the business sustainability and the other aspect of today's meeting. So not wasting much time, I would like to invite CA Sumit Garg sir, whose introduction will be less the much I will explain about him. So, CA Sumit Garg sir is a qualified company secretary and a practicing advocate. With close to 17 years of experience in the field of the corporate laws, FEMA, aviation law, and the regulatory matters related thereto, Sumit sir took his shot at his entrepreneurship journey in August 2021 by setting up Alpha Corporate Legal, a boutique law firm with a primary focus on the corporate laws, FEMA, restructuring, and transactional advisory. Before setting up his business, Sumit was a principal associate with DMD Advocates Delhi in its corporate and regulatory team. He specialized in the merger and acquisitions, corporate laws, foreign exchange law, corporate restructuring, and matter of operations and mismanagement. He has a rich experience in dealing with the varied complex and the regulatory compliances issue, cross-border acquisitions, setting up the startup ventures, and legal and secretarial due diligence of both Indians and overseas companies. Sumit has been a part of the various white collar crime investigations and dealing with the investigations in respect to the whistleblower complainants. Sumit frequently advised several Fortune 500 companies, India and foreign corporate houses operating in multiple cross-border jurisdictions, including startup across the different sectors on issue of pertaining to foreign exchange regulations, corporate laws, non-banking finance and insolvency laws. He is frequently represents clients including listed companies in regulatory and corporate matters before various judicial and quasi-judicial authorities, including high courts, security appellate tribunals, national company law appellate tribunals, national company law tribunals, SEBI, RBI, Directorate of Enforcement, CBI, etc. He also advises on the issue related to the real estate and capital market. Thank you. So, with this wide and vivid experience of CA Sumit Garg sir, I would like to invite to be on a dais and express your view about the today's topic. Welcome, Mr. CA Sumit Garg sir.
Thank you, Parul, for such an elaborate introduction. In fact, it is my pleasure to be associated with Connecting Professionals. Honestly, I didn't know much about Connecting Professionals, and Santosh gave a very good explanation and elaborate background of Connecting Professionals. And thanks to Pradeep as well, because when just a couple of days ago he approached me that Sumit, you have to take a session, and I said to him, the first reaction was that, oh my God, the time is so less. And Pradeep was like that, nothing doing, you have to take a session. I have already committed. So when Pradeep has committed something on my behalf, then I have to fulfill it. And I hope I should be able to do justice to and meet the expectations of the fellow professionals who are attending this webinar. So thank you so much. As Vineet has already explained in quite detail, the meaning of business sustainability and the interplay between the CSR provisions. So as he rightly said that, companies, they are earning profits and they are utilizing the resources of the country or of the geographical area in the states where they are operating. So they must contribute to the welfare of the society and also to the safeguarding of the environment and the economic status of the people working for these companies and in staying in the areas where these companies are operating. CSR, we all know that it's called corporate social responsibility. But when it was initially introduced, it was also called compulsory social responsibility. It was seen as a levy of tax, another form of tax levied by the government when it was introduced in effective from 1st April 2014. And as Pradeep rightly mentioned, that India is the first country in the world to make the CSR provisions mandatory. which effectively means that a certain percentage of the net profits has to be spent by the company. However, there have been various discussions, a lot of discussions between industry chambers, between politicians, legislators, where the interplay of the CSR has been discussed at length. And in when CSR was at a nascent stage, starting from 1st April 2014, immediately in 2015, a high-level committee was set up, by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and it was, if I remember correctly, Mr. Anil Bajal. He was the chairperson of that committee. So, CSR holds such an important value for the legislators, for Ministry of Corporate Affairs and the whole of India, that in a span of just 1 year, a high-powered, high-level committee was set up to evaluate the impact of making the CSR provisions mandatory for the first time in India. And the ways and means, to discuss the ways and means of how to make it more efficient, and how to clear the understanding of the corporates that this is not a levy in the form of a tax disguised under the corporate law, but it was actually a moral and social responsibility of the corporates. So the paradigm shift in the mentality of the corporates was required since CSR provisions were introduced. And after 2015, again in 2018, a high level committee was constituted by the government of India under the chairmanship of, I believe, Mr. Injeti Srinivas, who was the secretary in MCA at that point in time. And Pradeep, please correct me if I'm wrong. And they wanted to set up these committees to understand what has been the impact of CSR on India, on the corporates, and at the level where CSR was meant to help people, help sustain the environment, the profitability of the businesses. So over there were several recommendations made, which we saw last year. They saw the light of the day when the amendments were brought into force in Section 135 and the CSR rules in January 2021, effectively January 22nd, 2021. So all the provisions that we see that with respect to rollover of the unspent amount, ongoing projects, change in the definitions, the monitoring committee, the impact assessment, they were all the recommendations of the high level committee constituted in 2018, which submitted its report in 2019, which have been implemented in January 2021. And with the most recent amendment made on 11th February 2022, this year, just over a month back, wherein another form of reporting has been introduced for the companies who are covered under the CSR regime, to report their CSR contribution starting from 1st April 2014, since the time when CSR was introduced for the first time. So, there have been several discussions right from the inception of CSR that whether it is a tax, whether a contribution to the development or the safeguarding or the development of or the upliftment of the downtrodden can be is the responsibility of the corporates or the government, was again a big decision. But even before the CSR provisions came into effect in India, there were several corporate houses, as we all are aware, who were already taking care of the environment, of the socio-economic upliftment of the downtrodden people, and were also helping the government through public-private partnership. So if you ask me, CSR is not a tax, but it's a joint venture between the government. It's a public-private partnership of the government and the corporate world for the development of the nation, overall development rather, I would say it, because not just environment, not just helping people with their socio-economic status, but not only this, but also to help the government of India, who is under moral responsibility under the Constitution of India to work for the development and safeguard of the rights of the people. So, there were also discussions initially that whether these confederation of industries, various policy makers, various corporate houses, they were considering of filing writ petitions before the jurisdictional courts, challenging the validity of the implementation of CSR provisions in the form of a corporate tax, because tax, as we know, can be levied only under fiscal legislations, right, like the GST Act or the Income Tax Act, or indirect taxes that we know, customs, excise, and all of that. But it took a lot of time for the corporates to understand that making contributions to the CSR of 2%, when we say 2%, 2% appears to be a very small percentage, right? But the percentage and the amount becomes considerable when the companies like the Cognizant's, General Electrics, Hindustan Unilever, when we talk about Tata's, Birla's, Godrej, Reliance, for companies who are earning in billions, for them to contribute 2% of those billions of earning amounts to a very large amount. As Pradeep said, that it in the first year it was around, in 2018 it was around 20,000 crores, then it rose to 24,000 crore, then again it was somewhere around 20,400 crores, with almost one third of the number of companies that started contributing. So that only shows that business people, they also got a sense that helping in nation building in turn helps them to strengthen their brand image, their goodwill in the market. People know that these people, they are known for good work. Like we know of Tata's, they have been into philanthropy. In fact, several people, they discussed and they got it confused with philanthropy as well. But philanthropy happens at the personal level, not at the corporate level. So at the corporate level, what happens is the CSR. So, considering with the August audience that they are already professionals, so I will not divulge deep into the applicability of the CSR provisions, but would like to keep it interactive through the webinar or through the chat sessions, and also to have a practical perspective that what are the practical difficulties that the corporates are facing while implementing their CSR provisions. So we all know the basic thresholds that any company which has a turnover of 1,000 crores or a net worth of 500 crores or net profit of 5 crores in any preceding financial year, immediately preceding financial year, is required to spend at least 2% of the net profits, average net profits of the immediately preceding 3 financial years. Right. So 2% amount is required to be mandatorily spent. And by spending the FAQs which have been released in by the government in August 2021, in supersession of all the FAQ circulars that were issued by the government of India, it clarifies that it cannot be in the nature of a company contributing its own products or contributing its own services in kind to comply with the CSR provisions. Any amount is required to be spent, and any contribution in kind cannot be spent, is incapable of spending. So therefore, they clarified that it is the actual amount that is required to be spent. So therefore, it has to be hard cash. When I say hard cash, means the bank balances, the amount is required to be actually spent. So for example, say we know Escorts Limited, for example. I'm taking the name of these entities, but I'll say that I don't have any existing association or any relationship, of any nature, whether professional or anything else, with these corporates. But I'm just taking their names as examples because professionals, they are able to relate and understand with these practical examples. It is not necessary that these companies have faced these kind of issues. I'm just taking them merely for the purpose of examples for the benefit of the audience. So, like I was saying that suppose, for example, it's Escorts Limited, which is a big time manufacturer of tractors and other agricultural equipment. So if they are covered under the CSR regime and they are required to spend money for CSR under 135, read with the rules, then it doesn't mean that they start contributing using their tractors towards CSR and counting it towards CSR. They have to actually provide the funds from their bank accounts for undertaking CSR activities. Maybe the entities that they engage, either they can do it themselves, they can hire an implementation agency with a track record of 3 years who has complied with the filing of CSR1. So therefore they are eligible implementation agencies. So all those agencies, if they utilize those funds and purchase tractors from Escorts Limited, then also it will be covered as a CSR. And if they provide those tractors to farmers who cannot afford tractors, they rent them out to the farmers on cost basis, on just expense recovering of their expense, then also it would be considered as a CSR. But in this particular case, the point to be noted is that Escorts Limited did not contribute in kind. It contributed in the form of cash or the amount to the implementation agency, or to their own, if they are doing it in-house, then to their own independent CSR department, so that they can utilize that cash to spend that for the upliftment of the environment and the downtrodden. Like we saw that government has been very proactive with the CSR implementation, and straight going towards the activities that can be taken up as CSR. So we all have heard of Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, which prescribe the activities that can be undertaken, and they are objectives, they are broad activities which can be undertaken by companies to comply with their CSR provisions. But it doesn't mean that only these are the activities that can be done. So like for example, safeguarding of environment. Now, and safeguarding of environment can be done in various forms and shape. Either I contribute to the Clean Ganga Fund, which is a government fund established by the government of India, which is eligible to accept these contributions, and contributions made to such funds is also an eligible expense towards CSR compliance. Or I can also hold programs at the at the say in Varanasi or in Haridwar or Rishikesh or in Delhi on the banks of these rivers, and I may distribute pamphlet, may hold nukkad nataks to make people aware that safeguarding these rivers, not to throw garbage in these rivers, not to pollute those rivers, is an important aspect of safeguarding the environment. Then that amount is also, the amount spent in getting that pamphlets printed will also be considered to be a CSR expenditure and a CSR activity. We know that all these expenditures, all the CSR activities, any amount spent towards these CSR activities, if it has to be spent only in India, because it is ultimately at the end of the day, it is the Indian scenario that we are concerned with the development of India and its people that we are concerned with, right? So the amount has to be contributed within India. Now, in this particular scenario also, there is a clarification issued by the MCA in the recent FAQs of August 2021, that, and as also in the rules, that any contribution made towards sponsorship of the the athletes who are representing India or who are representing the state or at any level, if we spend amount on their training overseas, then that is also included. That will be an eligible expenditure towards CSR. So this is one exception. And I was taking the example of Escorts. Suppose if Escorts is into the business of manufacturing tractors. So any activity that is taken up by the companies as its business activity in the ordinary course of business cannot be called to be a eligible CSR activity. Now, as much as I appreciate the mandating of the CSR provisions by the government of India, there are certain aspects that are still to be deliberated, and the government needs to provide clarity on those provisions. Like we know that there is a provision which became effective on 22nd January 2021, that any capital asset created by a company as part of its CSR program has to be delivered to the entity which is carrying out the CSR activities, right? Or to the public authority. So, in this particular scenario, as we know that people, the corporates, they have been helping government as part of carrying on their businesses. Like I know of a company in operating in Rajasthan. It's into the manufacturing of the product that they manufacture is of such a nature that they have to discharge effluents in the ground or in the nearby water resources. So they have set up a treatment plant long before the CSR provisions came into picture. So now the question was that we were posed with was that is the company required to transfer that capital asset, that treatment facility, to the municipal authority who gave the contract to the company itself discharging the effluents in the nearby areas to manage and treat the effluents. So to whom it should be given, and it was a long-term contract. The contract was between the company and the municipality for 25 years, and almost 15 years are still remaining, and it was a boot project. Like boot project, as we know, that build, own, operate and transfer. So the responsibility of the company is to build the treatment plant, to own it, to operate it, and then at the expiry of the contract, long-term contract, transfer it back to the municipal authority. Now, in this case, it was a catch-22 situation for the company, because the provision under the CSR provision says that the capital asset has to be transferred within 180 days plus 90 days of extension to be approved by the board with the
पेमेंट में
explanation,
लेना है
proper
ना.
explanations to be given for that. So now in this particular situation, the CSR provisions do not provide clarity. So therefore, the advice that we gave to them is to speak to the municipal authority and to create a carve out in the agreement so that they are allowed to transfer the ownership of the project of the treatment plant to the municipality, subject to the condition that the company will continue to operate and maintain the treatment plant. My request to the government and through our elite professionals is to bring this to the notice of the government so that a clarity can be provided on this. Another aspect that came into picture in the same scenario is, as I said, that this company was owning the treatment plant, and when a company owns an asset, it claims depreciation as well on the same under the provisions of the Income Tax Act under Section 32. There was an amendment brought forth in Section 37 of the Income Tax Act, which Santosh and other CA would be better aware of, that any expenditure made by the company towards CSR has been disallowed under Section 37. However, there is a catch. There is an explanation that if the activity or the expenditure complies with the provisions of Section 30 to 36 of the Income Tax Act and fulfills the eligibility criteria, then it can be claimed as a deductible expense from the balance sheet or from the P&L of the company. So on that also, there were several litigations that occurred on that before the various forums of the income tax. One of those cases was Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited versus Commissioner of Income Tax in 2018, where it was held, and I am reading verbatim from the order, that the provisions of Section 37 of the Income Tax Act provide that deduction for any expenditure which is not mentioned specifically in Section 30 to 36 of the Act shall be allowed if the same is incurred wholly and exclusively for the purpose of carrying on business or profession. As the CSR expenditure, being an application of income, is not incurred for the purpose of carrying on business, such expenditures cannot be allowed under the provisions of Section 37 of the Act. Therefore, in order to provide certainty on this issue, said Section 37 has been amended to clarify that for the purpose of subsection 1 of Section 37, any expenditure incurred by an SSC on the activities relating to corporate social responsibility shall not be deemed to have been incurred for the purpose of business and hence shall not be allowed as deduction under said section. However, the CSR expenditure, which is of the nature described in Section 30 to 36 of the Act, Income Tax Act, shall be allowed as deduction under those sections subject to fulfillment of conditions, if any, specified therein. So the meaning is that if the CSR amount spent towards CSR fulfills the criteria mentioned under Section 30 to 36 of the Income Tax Act, then it will be counted towards as a business expenditure and therefore deductible from the P&L of the company, as well as the amount spent will be counted towards CSR contribution. So in this particular case, since the company was owning the asset way before the introduction of the CSR provisions, so we took a view that the funds utilized for setting up of the treatment plant were not the funds allocated for CSR activities, and therefore it complies with the requirements under Section 32 of the Income Tax Act related to depreciation, and the company may continue to take advantage of the depreciation as a deductible expense on the same asset. And also the company is not required to transfer this asset because this was not created utilizing the CSR funds or the funds allocated for the CSR activities. So, sometimes we come across these kind of life situations. At that point in time, the discussions with the fellow professionals, the interpretational issues, they are all required to be taken note of and should be considered before we advise the client. As I said that several new provisions have been introduced have been brought into force effective from January 22nd, 2021. So few of those important provisions are with respect to introduction of the definition of administrative overheads. Earlier, the provisions provided that 5% is the maximum limit of the CSR contribution that may be allowed as administrative overheads. Now, if we utilize any amount allocated towards the CSR expenditure towards the designing of the program or the monitoring evaluation of a particular program, that will not be counted towards they will not be part of the 5% of the administrative overheads, and the amount will not be counted as CSR expenditure. Now, with respect to the CSR, they have defined CSR, the corporate social responsibility, under 21D of the CSR rules. And in there, they have also provided the list of activities that are to be excluded from the CSR activities, right? So if the objective of the CSR expenditure is to gain, is brand building by the company or to exclusively benefit the employees of the company, although the words exclusive has not been used, but I have taken the liberty of using the word exclusively because the same has been clarified under the MCA FAQs of 2021. So if a company spends exclusively for its employees and their family members, then it will be disallowed to be a CSR activity. So now let's take an example of, say, Apollo hospitals. Apollo hospitals, they have employees, right? So those employees, they get sick, their families, they get sick. So can the employees get treatment from the dispensaries set up by Apollo hospitals towards the CSR, towards compliance with CSR? So the straight answer appears to be that if I apply the rule of literal interpretation, then I think then the employees, any employee going ahead and taking the benefit, or their family members taking the benefit of treatment in a facility set up by Apollo Hospital for its CSR activities, will be excluded from the CSR spending. But the clarification that came was that if it is exclusively for the benefit of employees, then it has to be excluded. However, if the employees and their families, they get the benefit of treatment in a hospital which has been set up, or in a dispensary which has been set up for the treatment of the general public, then in that case the expenditure on employees treatment or their family treatment will be allowed as a CSR expenditure. So as we see that the law is evolving around CSR provisions, bringing in more and more clarity with each passing day. Similarly, now we have a definition of CSR policy, which says that it is a guiding principles about the undertaking the CSR activities, and it also provides the monitoring mechanism for the selection of the CSR agency that is being hired by the company. So now the very important aspect is why when we are speaking about the contents of the CSR policy, we have seen that people generally they they follow the policies which have been issued by several other known corporates, preferably the listed entities, because we feel that the level of compliance in listed entities is much higher. But let me tell you that these are all the documents that have to stand the test of the law. We as professionals should not blindly copy and paste the CSR policies issued by other companies, because there may be errors in them. There may be discrepancies. Forget about the discrepancies. The corporates may have a specific agenda in mind which they are pursuing through their philosophy of CSR may be different. So in view of all these differentiating factors, I would suggest the professionals to draft their own CSR policy. Obviously, we can refer to the other CSR policies to seek the guidance and to have the ideas to be inspired. But at the same time, we should apply our own mind while drafting these policies, read the provisions of law, and then incorporate those provisions of law in CSR policy, and make sure that the CSR policy has all the relevant provisions, has all the relevant guidelines incorporated therein, so that the regulatory authorities, which in this case is the MCA, will not come after you, or even if they investigate or do the inspection, they find the CSR compliance at an optimum level. So coming to some other major changes is that any company which is required to spend amount which is not more than 50 lakhs, they are not required to constitute their corporate social responsibility committee, which is a big relief, in my view, to the corporates, to the small corporate houses, which were primarily the unlisted private limited companies, wherein the compliance cost was very high in terms of holding the committee meetings of all the CSR committees. So they have got a relaxation that any company spending less than 50 lakhs will not be required to constitute a CSR committee. Now, another important issue is that the corporates, they had taken a view that, once we have, as I was saying, that the company may undertake the CSR activities on their own, or they can hire implementation agencies, which may be in the nature of a registered society, government societies, or government trust, or Section 8 companies. They may form their own Section 8 companies, collaborate with other corporates who have Section 8 companies, definitely with separate accounts to be created, to be maintained, so that there is proper visibility that whether the CSR amount is being spent or not. So all these entities, implementation agencies, there was again, it was a mindset and it was an interpretational issue that whether the amount contributed by these companies to to the implementation agencies is a sufficient compliance under CSR Act or not. Does it absolve them from the responsibility of undertaking CSR? So the answer was no. It has been clarified by the MCA FAQs that the ultimate responsibility will be of the company, will be of the directors of the company, or even if there is a CSR committee, because it does not absolve them from their responsibility of overseeing the CSR implementation, right? That the amount is actually spent during that particular financial year. I think a lot has been discussed, and taking the liberty that we are all professionals and we know the basic tenets of the CSR provisions, I would request the audience to have questions for which I'll try to answer aptly, or maybe come up with lifetime case studies that you would have experienced in your professional life, so that we can discuss it over here in the open platform on a no name basis for the benefit of all the professionals.
Any queries from the YouTube live or Facebook live, Arun?
Uh, just I'm checking that only, Bhaiya. Let me check once.
तो सुमित
सुमित सर का कनेक्ट डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया क्या?
I am back.
आ रहे हैं.
Okay. So
Sumit, few question in which I want to ask. Like,
Sure.
what about Section 135, subsection 5 or 6, I would say, regarding penal provision? Prior to this amendment, 2014 January, there was no such provision in. There is no such provision regarding penalty. Only thing is that if company could not spend their money, they need to give disclosure in their board report pursuant to Section 134. Right?
Yeah.
So, what if my company did not expend during the period prior to 2021, and they may default in CSR of Section 135? Now, if I want to voluntarily made application for compounding under Section 135, so as per my understanding, if I want to make application today, obviously I have to make application under Section 130. I mean, penalty would attract under Section 135, subsection 6. But how they will calculate the penalty from the 2013 up to the period up to the 2021, January 2021?
Right. So, Pradeep, that's a very relevant question. And we have seen several orders being passed by NCLTs and by the relevant jurisdictional authorities compounding the non-compliance of the CSR provisions. We know that CSR provisions initially, if the company was not able to spend the amount, they were only required to specify the reasons why they could not spend. But starting from January 2021, now the penal provisions have been brought into picture. But that does not mean that they are retrospective. they are with effect from 21st January 22nd January 2021, as you rightly said. But in earliest provisions, there was no penal provision prescribed under 135. So therefore, the penalties were being levied, first of all, for any compounding to be done. There is a requirement that the default has been made good. So first of all, the company was required to spend that money or contribute it to the PM Cares Fund, and then approach the relevant authority for the compounding application that yes, now the default has been made good. So now the authorities, they were applying the general penalty prescribed under section 450, right? Because that was being applied for companies and the officers in default, which was somewhere around, if I am not wrong, for companies it was around 10,000 rupees for every continuing offense, and additional penalty of 1,000 rupees that was being levied. So the penalty provision was there, but yes, not a specific provision was there earlier for the penalty sections. And in fact, you will note, interestingly, if you look at section 135(7), which prescribes the penalty, it prescribes the penalty only for non-compliance with section 135 subsection 5, which is not spending the amount, and section 135 subsection 6, which is the transfer of the fund and the excess fund in case of ongoing projects. But for other non-compliance, for say non-constitution of the CSR committee, if something is applicable, not fulfilling the impact assessment, not obtaining the CFO or the financial person's certification to the effect that the amount has been spent, then what are the penal provisions in that case? So in my view, if we non-comply with 135 subsection 5 and subsection 6, the penalty will be levied under 135 subsection 7. And for any other non-compliance of section 135 other than subsection 5 and subsection 6, in my view, the penalty under 450, which is a general penalty, will be applicable.
Excellent, Sumit. I do agree with you, and this is very important aspect which you cover, because penal provision is not specific in terms of violation of like non-formation of committee or other things. So thank you, Sumit. One more question.
Sure.
Like in one of my company, they they have their own like facility for their employee during the pandemic time, and they spent money for their employees. So my question is, will it cover under CSR? I mean, the amount which they spent for establishment of that facility and other expense for their employee, for the especially for the purpose of pandemic. I mean, for the purpose of those employees who suffered by corona. Will it cover under CSR?
Pradeep, I think there's a gray area around this. And any amount spent by the companies during the pandemic time for exclusively for their employees, in my view, should not be counted towards CSR compliance. However, the companies will be eligible to take it as a deductible expense from their profit and loss account, because clearly over here the intent of the CSR provision is not fulfilled, because if the facility would have been created for the entire say locality or the entire village, which included the employees of the company as well, then it would have been towards CSR compliance. Otherwise, in my view, it should not be counted as CSR compliance.
But Sumit, their their auditor suggests that it will cover under CSR. So I agree with your view, but their auditor has, I mean, different view. So they are still fighting to have some conclusion regarding taking up that expense into their account or not.
हे प्रदीप
So
भैया, इट हैज बीन कंफर्म बाई सीतारमन जी ने भी अपने बजट स्पीच में दिया था कि कोविड से रिलेटेड जितने भी एक्सपेंसेस कंपनी ने किया है अपने स्टाफ को सेव करने के लिए, दैट विल बी अलाउड एज एक्सपेंसेस। वो सारा एक्सपेंस अलाउड होगा, तो प्रॉफिट लॉस में डायरेक्टली बुक कर सकते हैं हम लोग।
नहीं, वो तो सुमित भी कह रहे हैं that
हाँ,
expenditure can be
करने करने को
deducted.
बोला।
हाँ,
What Santosh is saying is that Sita Raman ji ने clarify किया है that it will be counted towards CSR expenditure.
No, 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 not towards CSR, and that will
Not
be directly as expenses. Okay, directly
correct.
expenses आप जैसे स्टाफ वेलफेयर की तरह ना इसको बुक करके यू कैन क्लेम एज एक्सपेंसेस।
expenses and CSR is different,
No,
Santosh.
हाँ,
so
मैं बोल रहा हूँ सर
Pradeep,
आपको सीएसआर जो
what Santosh is saying, if I may, that he, in a way, he is agreeing to what I said, that it will not be counted towards CSR compliance, but it will be allowed as a deductible expense.
Yes.
Although I personally feel, and this is again my personal view only, that given the fact and to encourage the ongoing and the continuation of the public-private partnership, especially when we don't know whether we this is the end of the pandemic or not, I feel that on humanitarian grounds, this expense should be allowed as a CSR expenditure as well for the companies, even if they have spent for their employees. Because at the end of the day, the idea was to help the government in helping the society to safeguard against the pandemic. But at the end of the day, my personal views, they don't matter, because ultimately it is the call that has to be taken by the legislator.
Yes. And one more thing, Sumit. This is another case of my own client. They purchased a few cylinder during the pandemic. Now they want to contribute, donate this cylinder to some trust owned by them only. I mean, indirectly owned by them. That trust is actually owned by them only. Now they
Okay.
ask me, can we take it as an CSR expenditure? So again, I am asking you, can we take it as a CSR expenditure?
Pradeep, in my view, first of all, it needs to be seen when did they purchase it. If they purchase it during the say in 2020, beginning of 2020, then I don't think so they will be able to claim that as a CSR expenditure for the current financial year, because whatever they would have contributed in 2020 in 1920 will count only for 1920. But if they purchase those cylinders in 1920 or say 2021 also, and they want to now contribute it towards that trust as part of their CSR expenditure, I don't think so it will be allowed to them to count it towards CSR expenditure, because actually the amount was spent in the previous financial year, not in the current financial year. And this is in sync with the clarification that has been provided by the MCA FAQ as well. Because if I want to account for any amount spent for the existing financial year, which is 21-22, then the amount has to be spent within the current financial year. And also there are other factors that the spending has to be in compliance with the CSR activities prescribed under the CSR policy and approved by the board of directors of the company or the CSR committee, as the case may be.
No, suppose Sumit, suppose they the company may incur over and above the required amount of CSR in a particular financial year, right? So they can set up that amount in subsequent year.
Correct.
So in my view, if they spent in prior to 2021 anything which is over and above the required amount of expenditure they need to have incurred, so they can set up, if they can set up in subsequent financial year, means current financial year. So that would be allowed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That if they have spent in this particular financial year, then only, and it is in excess of the amount which was required to be spent in the current financial year, then only the rollover will be allowed.
Okay, right.
But if
Thank you
you
so much.
want to take the benefit of some amount that was spent in the preceding financial years, and you want to take the benefit of that contribution today in the current financial year, then that won't be allowed.
Right, right.
Sir, there is a one query from CA Neeraj Singh. Uh, he is requiring, can you have some discussion, clarification on nature of expenses made by trust?
Uh, what kind of clarification is he looking for? Because that is not coming clearly from his question.
In context of getting the expenses allowed as a CSR expenditure.
See, trust may be an implementation agency.
Yeah.
Right. So suppose, say, if the company CSR policy allows company to make contribution towards CSR, and the eligible CSR activity is, say, for the education, right? For the education, providing free education to the children of class 5 for the
Okay.
complete financial year. So any amount contributed by the company to the trust towards the education of the children may be spent by the trust on the education, and but that has to be recorded because the funds have to flow from the trust to the school towards deposition of the fee. Then only it will be counted towards CSR compliance for the company also. As I said, that the ultimate responsibility is of the company, is of the board of directors, to see that the funds are actually applied for the cause for which they have been contributed. As professionals, we know that there are all kinds of activities prevalent in the market, and the exact reason of bringing in CSR2 and CSR1 is also from that perspective only, because there were several entities who were just paper entities, who were just making entries, taking the contribution from the company, and then utilizing their sources to route back that contribution back to the company or to the promoters in the form of cash, or those dubious means, right? So therefore, the government said that this needs to stop, and therefore they brought up the provision of CSR1 filing by these implementation agencies, so that they have a proven track record of at least 3 years to be appointed as implementation agencies by these companies. Because also from practical perspective, my view has been that any corporate which is which has a name for itself, like say Marriott, General Electric, Hindustan Unilever, Reliance, Adani's, Ambani's, Tata's, Godrej, they Mahindras, for them, as much as their business is important to them, equal importance lies in their brand image as well, right? Because brand image is also very important. So if the companies of these stature, they don't get into those dubious activities of getting the funds, or just making book entries, right? So they actually contribute to the society. From my experience, I'll not be able to take the name of that client, but there were almost half a thousand crore rupees that were required to be spent by that particular company towards CSR. But they did not spend it, and this was pre 2021 January period. They said we had to spend this kind of money, but we really don't want to spend it. So can we just simply write a reason? And it was a time in 2018-19 when Ministry of Corporate Affairs had issued almost 500 notices to the companies who were supposed to spend, but they did not spend, or did not spend the full amount. So at that point in time, my advice to them was that, irrespective that you are a large corporate, you have a large amount to be spent, but please, to avoid the name and shame philosophy which the government may follow, which may adversely impact your vendor relationship, your customer relationship. So therefore, you must spend this money and should not try to do any hanky panky stuff or provide any unsubstantiated reasons for not spending this money and then getting into a fight with the regulator. So from that perspective, all the expenses that may be made directly by the company or by a trust, that should be done through proper banking channels, so that proper records are created for spending and proper receipts are generated, and proper diligence is also done by implementation agencies as well as the board of directors, that amount has been actually spent. I see a question that from CA Neeraj Singh, that trust, any specific registration of trust somewhere. So first of all, the registration of the trust has to be under the Indian Trust Act. Then apart from that, if the trust has to be eligible, it has to be a charitable trust of the government. Then that's the end of the compliance. Obviously, filing of CSR1 will be required. But for any trust which is set up by a private person with charitable objectives, should also be registered under Section 12A and 80G, read with 80G of the Income Tax Act, so that any contributions that are made to the trust by these companies is also eligible for deductions under 80G. And Ashutosh, please correct me if I am wrong. Sorry, Santosh.
Yeah, that's correct one, sir.
So, Sumit, there are a company. I have again the same apprehension, and you are rightly connect. I can rightly connect the data of the ministry, which shows that company number of company making the CSR contribution in 2018 from 24,000 to 8,000 in the year 2021. In my view, especially the region, those company may be the book entry. I mean, they only merely doing the book entry, and actually they are not incurring the CSR, and they are not fairly incurring the expense for CSR. However, they are making the contribution by book entry only. That's why this data goes down drastically from 24,000 to 8,000. Am I correct, Sumit? My views.
Pradeep,
Do you agree?
there may be several reasons. We have seen that for companies, for small companies, they keep their companies alive without having much substantial business, and they create profits as well. But those kind of companies who would want to create profits to obtain loans from financial institutions or other lenders, it may function as a deterrent for them not to create profits, book profits, and therefore, because the profits may be created by book entries, but the spending cannot be justified just by mere book entry. So the amount has to be actually spent. So it may be a deterrent for the companies, or maybe, as you rightly said, that there would be book entries, and therefore now the CSR regime has been cleaned up with these provisions. So therefore now only those companies which are genuinely eligible are coming forward and making contribution towards CSR. And although the number of companies has was reduced to one third, but the amount spent towards CSR was almost the
Remains
same.
same. Remains same.
So this also shows the acceptability of the CSR provisions by corporates, and maybe because of its mandatory nature now and the penalties associated with it, that they are doing it by force or by volition. But still, I would say that it gives an indication that the CSR regime has cleared off those entities, and these are only genuine entities, those who are eligible under the CSR and are contributing towards CSR spending.
Yes, of course. Actually, this may be the one reason. I mean, because of number of company goes down uh, by striking of, I mean, drive mm, uh, by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs of those cell companies. So obviously, those cell company automatically striked off or wind up those who are not actually making the contribution for CSR. So only those company left. I mean, 8,000. Those are actually making the contribution. So,
Right.
uh, is there
There's
any other question?
Yeah, there's one more question from Ava May, and the question is that how can actually monitoring the expenses made by agencies? So Eva May, as you know, as I was saying that there's a the role of the government is not that of a monitoring agency. Obviously, it monitors the entire implementation of the CSR provisions, but the monitoring responsibility lies with the board of directors or the CSR committee of the board to see that the amount has been actually spent by the implementation agencies. And the only way to create it is to show those receipts, to verify those receipts, or to ask for quarterly reports from these implementation agencies rather than asking them at the end of the financial year that what they have done, where they have spent. Because I have had a recent shocker in October last year that one of my client companies, and it's a big name in the hospitality sector, a world-renowned company, one of the leaders in the hospitality sector. Their management, when I asked them questions that what is the amount that has been spent, so they said that they have contributed the amount to the implementation agency, and they after that they did not follow up. And on further asking them the questions, I got to know that the implementation, we had a call with the implementation agency, and the implementation agency said that because of the pandemic situation, the schools were closed, and therefore the amount that we had taken from you could not be contributed to the school because the schools were closed. So, I said that it resulted into a non-compliance. And even if this amount was not spent by 31st of March 2021, then you should have returned it back to the company so that the company should have transferred this within 6 months from the close of the financial year to an eligible fund under Schedule 7. So they said that our company secretary also did not tell us this. So, it's really, really important that we keep on following up with the agencies to ask for those reports, those certifications from those agencies that the amount has been actually spent, rather than having a heart attack at the end of the financial year. And also, I would suggest to Eva May that if she is part of a corporate which has required to spend on CSR, then she must advise the company to depute a person to do a site visit of the facility where, as per the implementation agency, the amount has been contributed, and verify it from there. Click photographs, right, to show that yes, the work is going on. Ask them for the receipts of the amount spent. Verify the credentials of those implementation agencies and their vendors as well, right? So that the CSR is implemented in letter and spirit, not just on papers.
Sir, any amendment has come in regard to government companies of CSR activities?
No, I don't think so. That any kind of government or PSU companies, they have any exemption from the provisions of CSR. So it equally applies to CSR, to government as well as non-government companies.
ओके, अभी रिसेंटली कोई अमेंडमेंट्स भी आए हैं सर? लास्ट मंथ में फैब में सीएसआर से
These
रिलेटेड?
are two.
As I said during my interaction, that CSR 2 form has been introduced by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs,
ओके,
and it's not an offline form for the time being. It's an online form that has to be completed online only. And basically, what government is doing is the form, in my view, has been introduced with the objective of collating the data of the CSR spending or non-spending right from the inception of the CSR, right from 1st April 2014 going until 31st of March 2022. In fact, 2021, sorry. In fact, until March 2021, all the data has to be filed online, and the last date for that filing is 31st of March 2022, wherein the corporates, they don't have to only show the activities they have undertaken, but they have to also show the calculations of arriving at the net profit for calculating the 2% expenditure. And going forward, starting from March 2022 onwards, this AOC, this CSR2 form has to be filed as an annexure to form AOC4 or AOC4 XBRL or whatever annual filing is applicable, along with the certification from the CFO, and or if the company doesn't have the CFO, then the person responsible with the financial decision making of the company. So that's the latest amendment, and that has come into effect from 11th February 2022. Any other questions we have from co-panelists or from the audience?
So, Parul,
When Pradeep contacted me for this session and he told me that it is to last from 4 to 6, my initial reaction was that CSR is not such a big topic that we can cover it for 2 hours. But I think we were just bang on with the introductions and everything, and the overall discussions by Vineet Bhai on the CSR and Pradeep. So it went on for absolutely exact 2 hours.
no, Sumit, it was wonderful session.
It's a great session, sir.
You covered great session, I would say, because you covered all aspects. I mean, many doubts maybe sought out during your session, and you um, really you took a wonderful session. So,
Thank you,
Santosh,
Pradeep.
I think you can direct Parul or
Yeah.
Arun.
I think Parul and Arun is not there. So on behalf of all the connecting professionals, formally, sir, I give you lots of thank you for coming on the very shorter notice. 2 दिन पहले ही प्रदीप भैया ने बताया कि बड़ी जल्दी हम लोग कर रहे हैं, लेकिन इसके बावजूद आपने टाइम निकाला, सर ने टाइम निकाला, विनीत सर ने टाइम निकाला, प्रदीप सर ने। तो ये बड़ा अच्छा मतलब लगता है प्रदीप भैया को, जब भी हम लोग बोलते हैं कि भैया 2 दिन में कोई प्रोग्राम करना, तो इनके पास स्पीकर के इतने इतने सारे टिप्स पे रहते हैं कि सारा प्रोग्राम हमारे को बड़े आराम से हो जाता है। और ये सेशन बहुत अच्छा था सर, मतलब लिटरली हम लोग को बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला। और इनफैक्ट हम लोग, ऑल्दो मैं आईपी वैल्यूएशन फॉरेंसिक में डील करता हूँ, लेकिन सीएसआर के इतने सारे चीजें अब जाके क्लियरिटी हुई है कि ये चीजें भी हैं जो हम लोग ऑडिट्स में रह जाता है। तो बहुत सारे लोगों का मैसेज भी आया है, बहुत सारे लोगों का क्वेरी भी सॉल्व हुआ। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर आपका, बहुत बहुत बड़ा थैंक यू। और इसी तरीके से कनेक्टिंग प्रोफेशनल में आप टाइम निकाल के आते रहें जब भी समय मिले। कोशिश करेंगे हम लोग फिजिकल भी करेंगे, विल ट्राई टू डू फिजिकल सेमिनार ऑल्सो, जहाँ पे लोगों से इंटरेक्शन करना अच्छा लगेगा, मिलना अच्छा लगेगा। इट्स अ गुड प्लेटफॉर्म। मैं कहूंगा कि आप लोग भी इसे प्रमोट करें कनेक्टिंग को, जहाँ पे सारे प्रोफेशनल को हम लोग साथ में लेके चल रहे हैं। कोई डिफरेंसेस नहीं है, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, कंपनी सेक्रेटरी, कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट, सब एक इस तरीके से ब्रदरहुड की तरह लेके चल रहे हैं, ताकि एक दूसरे की एक्सपर्टीज को हम लोग बढ़ावा दें। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। अब थैंक्स अलॉट सर, स्पेशल थैंक्स टू प्रदीप भैया, जो आज आपकी वजह से ये मुमकिन हुआ।
Santosh,
Oh,
I
thank
think
you so much.
you are
It
missing.
is entirely my pleasure to be associated with such nice professionals. And Ashutosh at such a young age, Santosh. I don't know why I'm calling you Ashutosh, but Santosh at such a young age, you have set up a platform for professional
आई
for
एम नॉट
knowledge
मच
sharing.
यंग, मतलब मेरे को 14 इयर्स हो गए क्वालिफाई किए
So,
हुए।
That's a great initiative, but still you look young as if you have just completed your CA.
Yes,
मैं
yes.
नवंबर
Well,
7
I
बैच
think
का हूँ
we
सर,
are all young at
2007।
heart.
हाँ।
Excuse my gray hair.
Sumit is actually my batchmate. We are
हाँ,
good friend for last 22 years almost.
ओके, दैट्स
So,
ग्रेट।
Santosh, I think you are missing memento for our speaker and
या डेफिनेटली विल ट्राई टू लव टू मीट फिजिकली। एक बार मैं आकर मोमेंटो हम लोग शेयर करेंगे सर के साथ और टाइम भी लेंगे। और मैं यही चाहूंगा कि सर आप लोग थोड़ा थोड़ा टाइम कनेक्टिंग वाले को देते रहे, और हम लोग का जो पर्पस है हेल्प करने का, आप हेल्प करते रहे। मैं अपना यही पर्पस है, लोगों की हेल्प करें। लाइफ इज वेरी शॉर्ट। कोविड में हमने बहुतों को देखा जाते हुए, ठीक है? तो सोशल तरीके से तो हम लोग हेल्प करते हैं, प्रोफेशनली भी किसी को हेल्प कर सकते हैं। तो प्लीज उसके लिए आगे आए, चाहे प्रोफेशनल कोई भी आपके पास चल के आ रहा हो।
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is the professional brotherhood that everyone shares, irrespective of whether a person is a CA, CS, ICWA, or an advocate. So that's a great platform, and I'm very privileged to be associated with the connecting professionals. And thanks to Pradeep for that.
It's honor, sir.
And it's always an honor to come back to the same fraternity and share my experience. You call me speakers, but because I have been speaking, but we all share our lifetime experiences here with each of us. So
correct.
that's the beauty of this platform.
Correct. So with this, I think Santosh, we can conclude
Yeah,
today's
yeah,
session.
yeah. We
Uh,
should conclude. Thanks everyone,
thank you,
and thanks
Sumit.
everyone, or even on the joining on the YouTube and Facebook live। सब लोगों का जुड़ने का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सबका। इस तरीके से जुड़े रहें, और फिर नेक्स्ट वेबिनार के लिए मैं जल्दी आप लोगों को बताऊंगा। विल ट्राई टू स्टार्ट वन फिजिकल सेमिनार इन दिस मंथ ओनली। एक इस मंथ एंड में हम लोग फिजिकल सेमिनार करेंगे। कोशिश करेंगे सेमिनार वेबिनार चलता रहे और आप लोगों के साथ मिलते रहे। और अगले वीक में, अगले मंथ में हम लोग एक म्यूजिकल इवनिंग करने जा रहे हैं, जहाँ पूरी अपने जितने भी प्रोफेशनल फ्रेंड्स हैं उनकी फैमिली के साथ गेट टुगेदर करेंगे। तो अगले मंथ में एक 3-4 दिन का हॉलीडेज आ रहा है, उस दौरान मैं चाहूंगा कि एक अच्छा म्यूजिकल इवनिंग करूं, जिसमें सारे फैमिली मेंबर्स और सारे प्रोफेशनल्स बिना स्ट्रेस के वहां पे आराम से एंजॉय कर सकें।
Thank
ठीक
you.
है,
Thank you,
चलो,
Sumit.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सबका।
Thank
थैंक यू सो
you.
मच,
Thank you,
थैंक यू सो मच।
everyone.
कीप
Thank
कनेक्टिंग
you.
प्रोफेशनल्स।
Bye.
थैंक यू
Take
सर,
care.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।